Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm an English teacher. I'm so excited to share my language learning tips and experiences with you. Most of my videos will be based on real lessons I've had with my students. I will also teach you effective techniques to improve your English in a fun and motivational way. Today we are going to talk about listening skills. Many students ask me, "Teacher, how can I improve my listening in English?" The answer is simple but very important. Listen every day. Just like when you learned your first language as a child, listening is the key to understanding and speaking English. Let me give you some examples of what you can do. Start with simple content. Look for short and easy English videos, podcasts, or songs. Don't choose difficult materials at first because they can be frustrating. Listen to the same thing many times. Don't be afraid to repeat the same video or audio. The first time, you might only understand a few words, but after listening several times, your understanding will improve. Focus on key words. When you listen, don't try to understand every single word. Instead, pay attention to key words or phrases that can help you understand the main idea. Active listening and repetition. Welcome to the first lesson on improving your English listening skills. Today, I want to teach you one of the most powerful techniques, active listening and repetition. But before we begin, let me tell you a short story about one of my students. Her name was Sophie, a beginner student who had just moved to a new country. She was shy and afraid to speak English because she couldn't understand what people were saying. One day, Sophie told me, "Teacher, I feel so lost. People talk too fast, and I can't follow their conversations." I smiled and said, "Don't worry, Sophie. I will show you a simple method to help you understand English better." I gave her a task: to listen to a short English podcast every day for 1 week. But here's the secret: she had to listen to the same episode 5 times. The first time, I told her, just listen without trying to understand everything. Let the sounds and rhythm enter your mind. The second time, I said, now focus on catching a few familiar words. On the third and fourth times, I encouraged her to repeat some sentences after the speaker. I explained, "This helps you improve your pronunciation and get used to the natural speed of English." By the fifth time, Sophie was smiling. "Teacher," she said, "now I understand so much more. Why does repetition work? When you listen to the same material multiple times, your brain becomes familiar with the sounds, words, and sentence patterns. It's just like listening to your favorite song. The more you listen, the more you understand and even remember the lyric. Here's an example for you to try. Listen to this sentence. I'm going to the market to buy some fresh vegetables." The first time, just relax and listen. The second time, focus on catching the words market and vegetables. The third time, repeat after me. I'm going to the market to buy some fresh vegetables. Great job! That's active listening with repetition in action. Another tip is to choose content you enjoy. If you like cooking, find cooking shows. If you're into sports, listen to English podcasts about football or basketball. The key is to make listening fun and interesting. Before we finish this part of the lesson, I want you to promise me something. Choose one short English video, podcast, or even a song today. Listen to it 5 times using the steps I just shared. Believe me, it will make a huge difference. In the next lesson, we'll talk about using transcripts and subtitles to enhance your listening skills even more. Don't forget to subscribe and follow my channel so you don't miss it. Identifying keywords. After Sophie started practicing active listening and repetition, she came to me one day with a new question. She said, "Teacher, I'm still having trouble understanding conversations. I know the words, but I can't catch everything." I smiled and said, "That's a common challenge, Sophie. But don't worry, I'll show you a simple technique called identifying keywords that will help you a lot. Let me explain it to you. When you listen to a conversation or a piece of audio in English, it's normal that you won't understand every single word. That's okay. The trick is to focus on the most important words in the sentence. These words are called keywords. If you can catch the keywords, you can understand the general meaning of the sentence, even if you miss some details. For example, imagine you hear the sentence, "I'm going to the store to buy some fruit for lunch." Now let's break it down. The key words here are store, buy, fruit, lunch. If you catch these keywords, you already understand the basic idea of the sentence. You don't need to understand every single word. Once you start identifying keywords, it will be much easier to understand conversations. Let's practice with another example. Listen to this sentence. "We are planning a trip to the beach next weekend to relax and enjoy the sun." Now try to catch the keywords. The keywords are trip, beach, next weekend, relax and sun. If you catch these keywords, you get a clear idea about the sentence. Even if you miss some smaller words, you can still understand what the person is talking about. I told Sophie, whenever you listen to something, focus on finding the key words. Don't stress if you don't understand every single word, just catch the important ones. At first, Sophie struggled a bit, but after practicing a few times, she started to notice the key words in conversations. She would say, "Teacher, I understand so much more now. It's like I'm reading the meaning of the sentence, not just listening to words." In the beginning, you might feel that it's difficult, but keep practicing. As you continue to focus on keywords, your brain will get better at recognizing them faster. Over time, this will improve your overall listening skills. In fact, listening to English in this way helps your brain filter out unnecessary information and focus only on the important parts of a conversation. It's like when you read a book and skip over the small words like the or is, but still understand the meaning of the story. Now, Sophie was able to understand more conversations and speak with more confidence. And she felt less stressed about missing some words, because she knew that focusing on key words would always give her the general meaning. In the next lesson, we will talk about how to practice this technique more effectively with real-life examples. But for now, start by identifying keywords in every conversation you listen to. I'm sure you'll start seeing results soon. Using podcasts for listening practice. After Sophie had mastered identifying key words in conversations, she came to me one day, excited but also a little worried. She said, "Teacher, I'm doing well with listening, but I want to practice more. What's the best way to improve my listening skills even more?" I smiled and said, "That's a great question, Sophie. One of the best ways to practice listening is by using podcasts. Podcasts are an amazing tool because you can listen to real conversations and stories in English, and the best part is that you can listen to them anytime you want." Sophie was curious, so I explained, "Podcasts are like radio shows, but they are available online and you can listen to them on your phone or computer. The good thing about podcasts is that they cover many topics. There are podcasts for almost everything: learning English, cooking, sports, technology, stories, and much more." I continued, "But, Sophie, there's a trick to using podcasts effectively for learning English. You can't just listen passively. You have to be active and focus on what you're hearing, just like we practiced with identifying key words." I told Sophie to pick a podcast that interests her. If you enjoy stories, try listening to an English story podcast. If you like sports, find a podcast about that. It's important to listen to something that you find interesting, because it will keep you motivated. Sophie was excited to try it. "What do I do when I listen to a podcast?" she asked. I explained, "First, start by listening to a short episode. Don't worry if you don't understand everything. Focus on catching the key words, just like we practiced before. The goal is to understand the main idea of the episode, not every single word. After you listen, try to repeat the key words or important sentences. This will help you remember the vocabulary and improve your pronunciation," I added. For example, I gave her a short example from a podcast. "Today, we are going to talk about how to make a delicious sandwich." Sophie listened carefully and caught the key words, sandwich and delicious. She repeated them aloud and tried to imagine the steps in making a sandwich. "Good job, Sophie. Now listen again and try to write down the key words or main ideas. If you have time, listen to the episode one more time. You will notice that you understand more each time you listen. That's the power of repetition," I said. Sophie started practicing with podcasts every day. She would listen to an episode in the morning, focus on the key words, and repeat them aloud. Slowly, she started noticing improvement. She felt more confident when listening to conversations and even when speaking English with others. One day, she came to me with excitement and said, "Teacher, I listened to a podcast about travel yesterday, and I understood almost everything. I even learned new words." I was proud of her progress. "That's amazing, Sophie. See how listening to podcasts can help? The more you practice, the more you'll improve." But then Sophie had a new question. "What if I still don't understand some words or phrases in the podcast? How can I learn those words?" I smiled and said, "That's a great question. We'll talk about how to deal with unfamiliar words in the next lesson. But for now, keep practicing with podcasts, and you'll notice how your listening and understanding improve over time." Listening practice with music. After Sophie had been listening to podcasts for a while, she came to me with a bright smile. Teacher, I've been listening to podcasts every day, but I'm looking for a fun way to practice my listening. Do you have any ideas? I nodded and said, That's a great question, Sophie. If you want to make listening even more enjoyable, you can try listening to music. Music is a wonderful tool for improving your listening skills, and the best part is that it's fun and motivating. Sophie looked curious. How can music help with my listening skills? She asked. Well, music has many benefits, I explained. First of all, songs are often easier to understand because they use simple language and clear pronunciation. Many songs also repeat words and phrases, so you can hear the same words multiple times. This helps you remember them more easily. I gave her an example. For instance, in the song Let It Be by the Beatles, you hear the phrase Let It Be over and over again. After listening to it a few times, you'll remember that phrase, and you'll be able to understand it in other situations. Sophie was excited. That sounds fun. But how do I practice listening with music? I explained, start by picking a song you like. It could be in English, or even your favorite English language song. Listen to the song carefully and try to focus on the lyric. Don't worry if you don't understand everything at first, just focus on catching a few key words or phrases. After listening, write down the words you recognized. Then, listen to the song again and try to catch more words. You'll notice that with each listen, you understand more and more, I said. Sophie nodded. Okay, so I should listen to the song many times and try to catch different words. What if I don't know the meaning of some words? Great question, I replied. If you don't know the meaning of some words, you can look them up. Also, pay attention to how the words are used in the song. Sometimes, the meaning of a word can be understood from the context. For example, I continued, if you hear the word love in a song, you probably know that it means something like affection or fondness, but in a song, it can also express strong emotions or feelings. Songs give you clues about how words are used in real-life situations. Sophie was excited to try this new method. I'm going to start practicing with my favorite song. Thank you, teacher. I smiled and said, I'm sure you'll enjoy it, and you'll see improvement in your listening skills quickly. The more you listen to music, the more you'll learn new words and phrases. A few days later, Sophie came to me with a big smile. Teacher, I've been practicing with my favorite songs, and it's amazing. I understand the lyrics better, and I'm even starting to sing along. I was happy to hear that. That's wonderful, Sophie. Music is a powerful tool for improving your listening skills. But remember, it's important to practice regularly. If you keep doing this every day, you'll keep getting better. Sophie was excited but also had a new question. What if I can't understand the lyrics of a song? Should I give up? I smiled and said, No, never give up. In the next lesson, we'll talk about how to handle difficult songs and how to improve even more. Keep practicing with music, and you'll keep improving. One afternoon, Jack, one of my students, came to my office after a few weeks of practicing listening technique. He was a bit excited and eager to show me his progress. Teacher, I think I can listen much better now, he said. I asked him to explain how he had improved. Jack started, well, at first, I used to listen to English podcasts, but I felt like I couldn't understand anything. But now, when I listen, I understand so much more. Especially when I started using active listening and repetition techniques. He explained how he would first hear each sentence and repeat it to make sure he had understood it correctly. I also learned to listen for keywords. Before, I wanted to understand everything, but now I realize that sometimes just the main words, like work or vacation, are enough to understand what they are talking about. I smiled and said, "Great job, Jack. That's fantastic. So, how do you use podcasts now?" Jack continued, "Yes, I listen to different podcasts now. I used to think it was hard, but now when I listen to shorter podcasts at a slower speed, I can understand them much better. And then I practice with music." He told me he listens to English songs and tries to hear the words and repeat them. At first, I couldn't understand all the words, but now I can understand more than I thought. That was the moment I realized that these techniques had really worked for him. Jack confidently said, "These techniques really helped me. I didn't think I'd see such a big change in my listening skills." I said to him, "Well, Jack, this is just the beginning. Now that your listening has improved, you need to get ready for the next step. In the next lesson, we'll focus on conversation skills. Because when you want to understand more, you need to start speaking too. Remember, all these techniques, like active listening and repetition or identifying keywords, are just part of the language learning process." He nodded happily. "I'm looking forward to the next lesson." I smiled and said, "I'm excited to help you strengthen your speaking skills in the next lesson. Make sure you don't miss the next one, because we'll discuss techniques that will help you gain more confidence in speaking."